Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Okay, so the bottom line is everybody here knows a lot of the basics about the whole UFO phenomenon and the whole search for extraterrestrial life, or else you wouldn't likely be here. So we all know that back in July of 1947, we know that there was a vehicle that crashed at Roswell, New Mexico. We are all convinced, I think because it's true, that craft was recovered by the United States and taken to the Wright-Patterson, at that time Wright Field, and that they've been working at back engineering that technology since then. And we all know that in 1952, like 5 years later, there was a huge flap of UFOs flying over Washington, D.C., and there was a huge amount of citizen demand for information about this. And so the United States government set up Project Blue Book that functioned from 1952 to 1967. We all know that the Blue Book project was basically a whitewash, that they attempted to explain away every single incident of a UFO encounter. As you know, flocks of birds that were mistaken for UFOs, theoretically, searchlights shining off the bottom of clouds, even under the point of asserting that it must have been swamp gas. This is a very famous kind of explanation that they had for it. And we know that the Project Blue Book basically tried to explain it all away. But the American people kept on demanding more and more information. So there were organizations, citizens organizations, that gathered and came together, NICAP and MUFON and others, that insisted upon engaging in citizen action, direct citizen action, to go out and interview people who had had encounters, to compile all the information about the different encounters and make it available to the public, et cetera. And we were engaged in that activity over a long period of time. As many of you probably know, became engaged with this particular issue when I was legal counsel at the United States Jesuit headquarters in their social ministry office. It was there that I was first contacted immediately after President Carter was elected. That you've probably heard this before, but when President Carter was elected, he had already previously seen a UFO when he was governor of Georgia. And so that he was elected on November 5th of 1976, and on November 19th, well, even before he was inaugurated officially, he sent for the head of the Central Intelligence Agency and asked that he come down to Plains, Georgia, and brief him on the UFO issue. At that time, the head of the Central Intelligence Agency was George H.W. Bush, who had been appointed by Gerald Ford to become the new head of the CIA after Richard Nixon was forced to resign. But at that time, George Bush Sr. refused to brief him on it, saying that he had no right or need to know that information just because he was president. And as it turns out, he didn't want to have a big prolonged fight with the Central Intelligence Agency, which was wise on his part. And so what he did is he contacted Congress and reported to them that the head of the Central Intelligence Agency had refused to brief him, and had the Congress undertake a special investigation through the Congressional Research Service to investigate the UFO phenomenon and the potential existence of an extraterrestrial in civilization in its possible relationship to the UFO phenomenon. That's when I was contacted. I was contacted by Dr. Marcia Smith, who was the head of the Science and Technology Division of the Congressional Research Service. And she asked me to serve as special counsel to that investigation. And in that capacity, I ended up getting access to the classified portions of Project Blue Book. That Project Blue Book had issued this big major report at the conclusion of their work in 1967, attempting to explain away 99.9% of all of the sightings, and that they just mentioned that there was a small number of these reports that they'd not yet been able to explain to their satisfaction, and it turns out that there were 700 of those. And they were all relegated to a classified program that continued to investigate these sightings. But it wasn't made public what it is that was going on. So we had this citizen action going on, but the citizen action, as Sarah has indicated, was all completely kind of informational. That the NICAP and MUFON and the others were gathering the information. And at that time, we didn't have internet, as you all know. And so what they were doing is trying to figure out how to get this information out to the public. But this was a complete citizen organization working. Later on, the International UFO Congress began to convene sort of annual gatherings. That was before Contact in the Desert began. But then Contact in the Desert began to gather citizens around the country to come together as a means of communicating the information. Again, this was actually before the major availability of cell phones and internet, et cetera. So we had these gatherings where the information would be shared, and the people that were doing the major investigations and the research would come together and talk to folks here. That was the sort of state of affairs until basically December of 2017. And you remember, I think everybody here, that on the morning of December 17th of 2017, there was suddenly this front page story in the New York Times revealing the fact that there had been, over the past decade, a top secret program going on inside the Pentagon investigating UFOs and the ostensible non-intelligent or non-human intelligence that was responsible for the UFOs. This broke on the front page of the New York Times, and it was followed up by CBS 60 Minutes, putting on television the two major people who had done this, Luis Elizondo, who it turns out was the head of the top secret program inside the United States Pentagon that was called the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. And also Christopher Mellon, who was the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence in both the Clinton administration and in the Bush Jr. administration. And the two of them had brought the now well-known videos of the Tic Tac and the gimbal and the fast walker, they call it, these F-18 Super Hornet gun camera videos of the UFOs. And that these were made available over the internet by the New York Times. So there was this new era that sort of began in December of 2017. Now we are all familiar with all of that. That's all information that we've all known about. What happened is 1 year ago, this is pretty far out. 1 year ago here at Contact in the Desert on June 11th of 2023, we got notice. Richard Dolan and I were contacted and told that there was getting ready to be a major event on television, that there was going to be an interview. This new cable television network called News Nation was going to be interviewing a high-level official inside the UFO program that the government had. So what we did is Richard Dolan and I actually set up, we ran around and talked with Captain Ron, and we talked with Jordan Peace and the others that were the people here in charge, and we set up a big live television, for a live feed for all this. And so here we are, Richard Dolan and I, going, and now we will present to you this live interview by David Grush, who was on the secret UFO task force inside the Office of Naval Intelligence. And there it was, bang, out it came. And then we all began working behind the scenes that we had at our office, as Sarah mentioned, at our institute of the Romero Institute that we have. We set up in 2017 or so, shortly after the New York Times pages that revealed all of this, we had set up a special project called the New Paradigm Institute. And this institute was designed to shift a lot of the resources from our Romero Institute that had been working on previous cases like the Iran-Contra case of exposing the off-the-shelf enterprise, working on the Karen Silkwood case that Sarah had mentioned, other major cases that we had done. We had all these resources and all kinds of contact information for people around the country to start drawing their attention to this whole issue of the UFO phenomenon and the potential extraterrestrial intelligence that is represented by the UFOs. So what we did is immediately after the interview, but with David Grush, that Ross Coulthart did, we started working directly, intensely, trying to get Grush to testify in front of the United States Congress. And so between June 11th and July 26th, all the people working on this succeeded in getting the United States Congress, the House Oversight Committee, to agree to actually call Grush before the committee. And then under oath, he publicly revealed again to Congress under oath that our United States government was in possession of an extraterrestrial, non-human origin spacecraft. And the bodies that had been recovered, that had been shown by biological evidence to be non-human. Now, this all of a sudden put not only Congress on official notice that this was true, but put everybody on notice that Congress knew about it. Most importantly, for those of you who've ever worked with Congress, it isn't that they always do the right thing, but they sometimes do the right thing if they know everybody else already knows. And that they can't be looking like they're not doing their job, and so that they will start to move on things like that. And so that on July 26th of 2023, David Grush testified under oath, revealing this information, in that it was on television. It was on like C-SPAN. And it got picked up and it got put on YouTube, and all of a sudden people all around the world started realizing that there were high-level officials inside the government now admitting that this was true. Now, what people don't know is that testimony on the part of David Grush was explicitly cleared by the U.S. Defense Department, specifically authorizing him to make public that information, which is the beginning of the background story that I'm now going to start to talk with you about. Because the people have information in the public, but there's other things going on behind the scenes that become extraordinarily important for those of you who come to an event like this, In Contact in the Desert, to be told about. That is the first piece of information, that the testimony of David Grush asserting that we were in possession of an extraterrestrial, non-human origin spacecraft, and the bodies of beings that had been recovered from the craft that were proven to be non-human, that information had been authorized by the United States Defense Department laterally pursuant to this legislation, what is to be postponed. And they have no device yet in place, even though the United States Senate has proposed one.